everyone, it's Maki. The world of Cosmic Era is the setting for the Gundam Seed series. In this world, genetically manipulated humans called coordinators are in conflict with conventional humans called Notos. In the movie Seed Freedom, a new type of humanity called the Occult appears. Although the release date has not yet been decided, Freedom Zero is currently in production. The world is in such a dangerous state that even the slightest trigger could lead to humanity's destruction. What kind of ending will humanity face? This time, let's analyze the future of the Cosmic Era. Before we dive into the main topic, I have a quick announcement. On my channel, I'm inviting supporters to become members. For just 99 cents a month, you can get a name badge and stamps for comments. Now, let's begin the analysis. This time, I'll be analyzing the content of a book called RGB Illustrations. There's one thing to keep in mind. Even though this is an official publication, information created outside the anime may change later on. Therefore, it's best to interpret it under the premise that it's just one of the possible outcomes. In the book, there's a short story titled An Old Man. It's about a journalist interviewing an elderly man. The journalist's identity is unknown. The elderly man being interviewed is the main focus of the story, but his name is never revealed. Only fragmentary details are given. He was a friend of Kira Yamato. At the time of the interview, he had a discharge permit from the Earth Alliance forces. He had boarded the battleship Archangel as a crew member, but he left the ship after the battle in Alaska. He continued his friendships with Mary Hall and Sayagayo. Based on this information, it's almost certain that this man is Kazi Buskirk. Through his words, we catch a glimpse of the future of the Cosmic Era world. The old man remembers when the space colony Heliopolis was attacked by Zaft. He remembers Maronius pointing a gun at him and even firing at him. He chuckles wryly at the memory. It's crazy, I guess she was young at the time, he says. As he remembers the collapse of Heliopolis, he also talks about Kira. At this point, the old man uses an honorific when referring to Kira. Then, he begins to talk about the war itself. You could never hope to win a war against the coordinators. I saw their abilities up close, and they are fundamentally different, he says. While reminiscing, the old man takes out some medicine. If I don't take this kind of medicine lately, even going for a walk is difficult, he explains. The medicine he takes out is called Grifepan-D. The journalist tells him that's a drug created from technologies developed during the war. In C, the boosted man was shown taking a drug called gamma Grifepan. It seems that wartime technologies have been reborn as peaceful medicine. This may seem insignificant, but it's actually a noteworthy detail. In Seed, a character proposed using the neutron jammer Cal-re for civilian life to solve the energy shortage. However, Nuruta's rail harshly criticized and dismissed this opinion. This scene highlights the dominant mindset that superior technology should be used to destroy the enemy. However, during the old man's time, the idea of using advanced technology for medical purposes emerged. Of course, only this one example of medicine is described, so it's unclear what philosophy the world as a whole follows. Still, it seems to be a peaceful enough era for this old man to live his life quietly and for a journalist to conduct an interview with him. I'll discuss that point in the next section. Then, the old man speaks about the circumstances under which he left the warship. After witnessing the giant weapon Cyclops, he left the military. However, he tells the journalist that it wasn't Cyclops itself that made him decide to resign, but rather the moment when enemy guns were aimed directly at the bridge on which he was standing. Until then, he thought of death as something distant. He considered it similar to a natural disaster, something that happened far away. But having a gun pointed at him made him realize that he was in the middle of war. That is why he left the service. Did you notice, by the way? This story is framed as an interview with the old man in a magazine. The name Cyclops is mentioned very casually. It was the self-destruct weapon used by the Earth Alliance to attack Sut, which resulted in the sacrifice of their own allies. Furthermore, it was essentially a massacre carried out by the Atlantic Federation against the Eurasian Federation's military forces, which were in a state of internal conflict. Yet officially, the public was told that the damage was caused by a new soft weapon. Regarding Cyclops, the old man tells the journalist, "Is it all right if I talk about Cyclops? That incident wasn't disclosed for quite a while, was it? Even after the war entered a ceasefire state, it seems I was still being watched. I think it's fine now though." Apparently, a major event occurred in which the details of the operation involving Cyclops were disclosed to the public. This is a big difference from the earlier cosmic era when false information was everywhere. The old man's remark that he was being monitored for a while is also fascinating. Kuzi and his friends disembarked from the battleship Archangel in a neutral country called Orb. This was not under the control of the Earth's Federation forces. It appears that intelligence agents connected to the Earth Alliance had infiltrated Orb. Then the old man spoke about the country in which he lives. "Thanks to this country, I've been able to live to such an old age." There's even a moment when he talks about Cal-re-A at her. He refers to her as the princess of the country I live in. From this, we can infer that Orb still exists even after Kazi has grown old. However, it doesn't seem that Orb is completely peaceful. The old man says nowadays, Orb is a little noisy with incidents like political corruption. But it's still better than being at war. While there are minor incidents, the situation is not dire enough to plunge them into war. At the end of the interview, the journalist tells the old man, "Next I'll be going to the plants." Upon hearing this, the old man responds, "Oh really? Is that person still alive?" There's no mention of who that person refers to. However, the old man's surprise at hearing they're still alive suggests that that person is someone who, like him, would now be elderly. So, who could this figure connected to the plants be? Clearly, this is an era in which journalists can travel freely between Earth and space. Conflicts may still break out in the cosmic era, but the fact that a peaceful age eventually comes is a small yet meaningful source of hope. Thank you so much for watching until the end. I'll see you in the next episode.